Okay, here's where we have to understand how music is organized. Today's today's lesson on how music is organized is the most important fundamental thing that you absolutely must learn about the organization of music. Yeah. Um, in a nutshell, this thing that you and I are calling music, you know, and this instrument that I'm playing the guitar or even many other instruments that you hear, the pianos and stuff, all of these are centered around a structural organization of music that whereby there are only 12 recurring notes in the music. Now this doesn't mean that when music was I don't know first created, or if there's such a thing called natural music, like you hear the whistling sounds of birds and stuff like that. It doesn't mean that all of them also follow these 12 notes, but for the sake of organized, let's call it Western music. Yeah, organized Western music, there are just 12 notes in the music, and then everything else is a matter of how we arrange things, which of these 12 notes we use, and so on. There are other cultures, for example, some North Indian cultures where they also have their own history of music making, where they don't use 12 notes, they use 16, or there might be some cultures which even use 18 divisions and notes to describe music. So let's not get into that complicated thing. Let's just say that for the music that you and I are playing and talking about here, there are 12 notes in the musical thing. A guitar, for example, say a good representation of the way these notes are. Let me play the first string, the lightest string on the guitar, without pressing a single fret. So this is an open string, we call it. And this note is an E note. If I press the first fret, the next note is, you just have to take it from me, the next note is an F note. If I press the another string, the next note is called F sharp. At the third fret, it's called G, then it's G sharp, then we have A sharp, B, and then there's a C. There's no B sharp, there's a C, C sharp, D, D sharp, and then voila, we come back to an E again. That's it. There are no more notes. So we have an E at the bottom, and we have an E at the 12th fret, and that's it. They are the same, except one E is higher than the other. Listen to this. Okay, so this higher E, we call it an octave higher. Never mind about that. Now it so happens that if somebody wanted to show somebody else all the notes of the musical scale, they could play this. It sounds mechanical. Yeah, it sounds mechanical. And then somewhere along the line in history, somebody said, why don't we have a certain organization and a certain reference kind of movement instead of going through all these bloody 12 notes? Yeah. So they said, okay, let's do things a little bit differently. And they went to this. It sounded almost like a tune. Sounded nice, but instead of having 12 notes now, they reduced it to just 8 notes. Now, these reference 8 notes. This is the entire reference structure for the organization of music, right? And the way it is described on a guitar board, think of it like this: any string, if you start with that, that is going to be the reference in that key. So if we start with an E, so this is I'm going to play now the E reference notes, and this is E. then instead of playing the very next note. In music, if you play a note exactly beside the previous note, it is called moving a half step. If you play a note which is like two half steps away, it's a whole step. Don't ask me why they called it this. Yeah, I wasn't around in those days to advise them on how to name their notes and their steps. So anyway, if you start an E, you avoid the next note, but you play on the second fret now. This is like a full step movement, right? And then you move another full step, then you move a half step, then you move a full step, a full step, a full step, and a half step. You get this sound. Those of you who are older might remember the good old days of do re mi fa sol la ti do, yeah, from Mary Poppins or whatever. So anyway, that is that. Now, in a guitar, the notes tend to be repeating. Yeah, like for example, the first string here, the sixth string is an E again, and here we have E, we have an F sharp, we have a G sharp, and we have an A. But the next string, which is the fifth string, is already an A string. So if you wanted to play that whole, 12 notes, you could go up on the E string, or you could utilize the A string to help you. But the moment you go on the A string, and when you cross the fifth fret of the guitar, so to speak, you are coming into, this is a D note, right? This is already a D string, so you could go here. And so you could use these three strings to play that, reference scale, which is called the major scale, by the way. Yeah, let the cat out of the bag. It may be boring. If it's boring, probably because I explained it in a boring way. But what I'm trying to say is this is the reference upon which all of the music theory that we know is developed. You take any note anywhere, you move one step away, then you move another step away, then you move a half step, then one step, one step, one step and half step, and you'll end up one octave higher. And because in the guitar the strings, it's not like the one string to another is like 12 half steps away. There are only 5 half steps, and you're already onto the next string. So the notes are repeating very nearby, and so I could play for example, I start here. This is a G note, so I got to play the G reference scale, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I hit the octave exactly, one octave higher than that. And so now I have, just to talk about seven notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the 8 is the octave. So I actually even now just talk about 7 different notes. Yeah. And I can describe now G. The first note of G, the second note of G major scale, third note of G major scale, fourth note, etc. This is the reference point. Okay, coming back to the original question, what is the difference between a major and a minor chord? Here we are. If I use E as a starting point, here we go. This is the major scale in E, yeah? If I take the first note, then I take the second note. I forget the second note, sorry. I take the third note. I forget the fourth note. I take the fifth note. I only play the first, the third, and the fifth notes. I could play them separately and they form a tune. Okay? or I could play all these notes together. I just find a place to play the first note. I look for an E. Okay, a place to find the third note, a place to play the fifth note, and I play all of these notes together, three notes together. This is called the major chord. The major chord is when you play the first note, the third note, and the fifth note of whatever is your reference point in that major scale. So you're going to say Raggy, but you just played six strings on the guitar. I'm telling you, this is an E major chord, and the E major chord only contains three notes. It contains the first note, the third note, and the fifth note. So what's going on here? What form of fakery is there where I'm playing six strings, but I'm saying there are only three notes? If I analyze the notes, I've got an E here, I've got a B, I've got another E. What do I have here now? I've got a G sharp here. Then I've got a B and I've got an E. So I've got a few repeating E's. I've got one, two, three E's there. I've got two B's, one here and one an open string, and I've got a G sharp. So there are actually only three notes involved in all of this. An E, a G sharp, and a B. So some notes were doubled and repeated, you see. So what is the E minor chord? The E minor chord occurs where you take, instead of 1, 3, 5, is you take the 3 and you reduce it by half a step. In music, these guys always come up with all sorts of fancy, complicated words to describe things. I would have just said, just reduce the third note by half a step. But what can I say, yeah? Organized music is as such. And so they say, flatten the third note. So play the first note. Instead of the third note, you play flatten the third note. Flatten means to reduce by half a step. That means, in other words, one fret on the guitar down. And so you got 1, 3, 5 for a major chord, and 1 flat 3, 5 for a minor chord. Listen to this. This is the sound of a major, three notes of a major chord, yeah? And I'm not even going to use technical terms. And for the minor, this is the minor. The minor sounds gentler, doesn't it? And if you play the three notes of the major together, you get this. If you play the three notes of the minor together, it's getting a bit gentler. So folks, this is the difference between a major chord and a minor chord. In a major chord, the notes that are used from whatever the chord name, from its reference scale, in other words, from its major scale, you're using the first, the third, and the fifth notes. They often call this chord spellings. A major chord is spelled 1, 3, 5. And for a minor chord, the third is reduced by half a step or one fret on the guitar, or flattened if you want to use the correct term. And so a minor chord is 1, flat 3, and 5. So when you were playing E minor, you were playing 1, flat 3, 5 on the E, and 1, 3, 5 on the A. Which is why your minor chord sounded a bit sweeter. There's a flat 3 going on. A bit later on when we do other songs, I don't need to explain the major scale to you again. I just can give you the chord spellings. And as you learn how to play songs, be mindful of the chords that you are playing and be mindful of what they sound like, because I'll explain to you, in a future lesson, how chords bring about feelings, and that knowing the chord that we are playing and understanding, the feeling that we want to generate makes a lot of sense when you're playing in a band or when you want to sing. For example, Now, this is not the lesson for today, but just to give you an idea, if I played a D chord, then I played another kind of a D chord. Look at that. This is now becoming so very more gentle. And then I played another kind of a D chord. And all these were actually, there was no D minor involved in this. There were different kinds of D major. This is a D major. Do, 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 do. And then another kind of a D major. Do, 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 do. Ooh, this is so gentle, yeah, so delicate, isn't it? And then this is a D dominant 7. It's a bit more dominating, and it seems to be pointing to go somewhere. So if I had a song with just D chords, then I could go to another chord. And these are all different majors going on, but now I was in a G major. But from a G major, I want to go really, really gentle and really sweet. Now I've done so many different kinds of major chords already. I want to just change the flavor, and I go to a minor. From the G major, I go to do. I go back to my original chord. Now I'm not teaching you these chords. I'm just trying to give you an idea that it's important to understand where these chords are coming from, because they all create different kinds of feelings. So if you want to play a song, and if you want to have a certain kind of feeling at that point in the song, if you knew your chords and you knew which chords are gentle, which chords are sort of like harsh, which chords are subtle, which chords are sweet, you will know what chord to put there, or you have a good idea what chord to put there in. Like, so now I'm just going to do a song with like a D and G's and G's, but I'm going to do D, D major 7, D7, or sometimes called the dominant 7, and then I go to a G major, G minor, G minor goes back to the D major, do 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 Ah, if you're just curious as to how long will it take to be able to move into chords like that, I think maybe by the third or fourth lesson, seriously, if you just bear in mind what I just told you. This first lesson is like a long, lengthy piece, because we talked about choosing a guitar tuners, guitar strings, and all that, and I needed to explain what the major scale, excuse me, is about. So there's a lot of talking, but in actual essence, if you can absorb this, chances are, if you go to any other site and they are explaining things about music or guitaring and stuff like that, you can understand more. But when we go into the next guitar lesson, I don't have to repeat some things in such a long, meandering kind of a way. We can just go straight down into what we need to do. But every guitar lesson that I give should contain like some chords to play that give you an idea of a strumming pattern or a groove pattern to play in it. And then for every new chord that is introduced, I should explain the background theory structure for it. Like today, I explained to you what a minor chord and a major chord is, and within a few lessons, you'll be able to have, I would think, a fairly good grasp of how to use chords in your playing, very important for rhythm guitarists. And even if you want to be a guitarist who plays a lot of guitar solos, you have to have a good grounding knowledge of guitar chords, because the chords all begin to sound different, they have different feels. Then when you are playing your guitar solo, you can know in which direction you want to move your solos, and you can know which are the important notes to play to give your solos a certain kinds of feels. Yeah, I think that's about all for now. I probably have to edit this video a bit to reduce its length, but at the same time, if I if I structured it and put it into like chapters, you might be able to bear with it, or just hop to the sections that help you. Yeah, uh, and I would appreciate any comments that you have. If you have problems and difficulties in understanding anything that I said, you can drop me a comment. Or I'm also live a few times a week in my Twitch channel. You can just drop into my Twitch channel and say hi. You watch my video and you want me to clarify a certain point, and I'll just do it. I'll clarify the point live in there. Uh, what do I ask for you in return? I'll just watch the video, and then okay, if you really want to help me, you can subscribe to the channel or click a like on the video. That uh, probably helps me a bit. And you can even join in a so-called membership kind of thingy in my channel. Though to be honest with you, the channel is like how do I put it? Yeah, it's not really generating any income. So you know, I'm happy for just people to watch in. But if you do want um, to join in as a membership, and maybe hey, in future I'll be able to afford a jet airplane or something like that. Thank you so very much. Meanwhile, enjoy guitaring, enjoy guitaring, enjoy. It's a real source of enjoyment. Yeah. Thank you. Bye.